know that feeling when a project turns out exactly how you hoped? That's how I feel about stitching these in the hoop stockings that I made for my in laws, complete with their names embroidered on them. It's a sweet little pattern from Pickle Pie Designs, and I think they turned out so festive. With the holidays getting closer, everything is feeling a bit busy and magical at the same time. And sitting down to make these felt like a breath in the middle of a really hectic week. And today I thought I'd bring you along for the whole cozy progress. I'm not going to lie, I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, and I definitely overdid it this past week. However, stitching these gave me a sense of accomplishment where I hadn't been feeling very accomplished. And so it's been really great. If you don't want to stitch along with me today, that's fine. I put timestamps down below. You can skip ahead and join me for the part of this process where I discuss my UFO tracker and how I'm using it to keep track of the progress that I'm making on my UFOs, and also what I've been doing with some of the other UFOs that I have found in my sewing space. So feel free to skip ahead if you don't want to stitch along with me. Otherwise, let's get sewing.
Well, my name is Dolly Parton, and I am a songwriter.
Here I am getting ready to trim the fabric. I've got a couple of fat quarters and I want to evenly cut the fabric. So I folded it in half and then finger pressed a crease so that I'd know where the center was. Now, if you've been here for any bit of time, you may know that some days I don't have good hand control. And some days I don't have the brain capacity to remember what the correct measurements are to cut. So on this next piece, I fold it in half like I did before, and I do my finger press. But then when I open it up and refold it, something doesn't look quite right. As I set my ruler on top and I pick up my rotary cutter, something says, Luckily, I think maybe I should measure twice and cut once. Then I realized I could really just fold it in half again and make myself a second crease, and I would probably be more accurate. What can you do? Some days are just like this. But all is well. When you're doing an in the hoop project like this, the wonderful thing is that you don't have to be accurate with your cutting. You're cutting everything oversized, and it'll all turn out well in the end. So here I am at the machine, and I am stitching the placement line onto the stabilizer that is already hooped, obviously. I hooped the stabilizer a little bit larger than I needed, and then I made sure that it was nice and taut when I hooped it. On my right, on my little ironing table, I've set up the instructions that you'll see me refer to those several times while we do this project. Now, at this point, what we're doing is we are stitching the back of the stocking so that we will have it ready to place on top of the project. I'm stitching down the batting. Now, my batting is a little bit wrinkled, and that's okay on this project. You'll see me smoothing it out a little bit in front of the needle. I just carefully make sure that my hand stays away from the needle so that I don't cause myself any injury. But this is going to be quilted so much that it won't matter that it's a little bit wrinkled now. So now what I have to do is I need to trim around the edges of the batting. I'm using my duck-billed applique scissors and trimming as close to the stitching line without stitching through as I can. This doesn't need to be perfect. Now I'm getting my piece of fabric that I need to lay on top of the batting. The pattern is going to stitch around the edges and then quilt it. So I am just going to smooth it out. You can tape this if you feel comfortable, but I've been doing it long enough and I know that I've got plenty of fabric to go around all of the edges, so I don't really have to tape it. Now I've sped up to the part where it's going around the edges and getting ready to do the quilting, just so you could get a little bit of a better idea. And this is what the quilting looks like. It's really interesting because it's a crosshatch, but this is the way that it stitches it. And this is how it looks. Amazing. All right, so now all I have to do is I have to lay the backing or the lining of the Christmas stocking on top, and it is going to stitch across the top. And when I take it out of the hoop, I will flip this to the back side and press it in place, and it'll be ready for the final step of the stocking front pattern. That was easy. Ta-da, we're done. Okay, it's a new day. It was getting a little bit late and I was tired. So I decided to wait till the next day to finish the front. As you can see again, I've got most of my things on the right-hand side here, but I had tucked aside the pieces that I needed for the front of the pattern so that my little kitty wouldn't get into it overnight. So I'm just organizing things. You'll see in this case, I didn't even completely trim the batting because that would be an extra step. And sometimes we can take some shortcuts. The pattern is stitching out the shape of the stocking so that I can lay the batting on top of it, and you'll see it's kind of cool how it's going to stitch this out. Now it's going to do the same thing where I tack down the batting and then I'm going to trim around the edges like I did before. I have no idea what I was looking for at that moment. Don't remember. Clearly I was worried something was underneath. While I'm waiting for this to stitch down, I want to take a moment to tell you that you're doing a really good job. Whatever you're working on right now, even if it's just sitting watching me, you're doing great. So this piece of batting is particularly wrinkled. Maybe I should have ironed it. I don't remember if this one was a fusible and that's why I didn't press it. That may be the case. I'm using up all the scraps that I have of batting that are just little bits of leftovers here and there. And it's making me very happy to clear it out of my stash. I've got my duckbill scissors ready. I also have a double curve set of embroidery scissors that I really like. I was having a little bit of trouble trimming with the duckbill scissors because it kept getting hung up on the nap of the batting, but it worked fine. I think at this point I didn't quite get as close as I'd like to have, but it worked out fine in the end. I have to trim it before you actually stitch it together anyway, so, or, flip it right side out, so it's all good. That's what I love about In-the-Hoop projects. They're so forgiving. So even if I'm having a bad day, I can actually work on a project like this. I'm using up as few spoons as I possibly can. I don't know. If you have a chronic illness, do you sometimes feel like even though you feel terrible on a particular day or having a flare or experiencing pain, sometimes you just want to be creative anyway? I know I do. Okay, so now it is going to stitch around the fabric and it is going to go right into the quilting as we did on the other side. The interesting part about the front is that it's going to skip over a few areas, so it's going to go pretty quickly. There are certain areas that it doesn't have to quilt, so it's so fun to watch though. Sometimes I get really mesmerized by it. I especially like on the quilting design on this one that it almost looks like hand stitching the way that it's stitched out. Love it. So I've now turned over to look at my computer because I was trying to remember how to add an embroidery design to this. I want to embroider my father-in-law's name on the cuff. So I was looking it up on YouTube really quickly. All right, we finished the quilting and I am getting ready to stitch down the toe part. I'm trimming the thread up top so that I can pull it out through the needle. That's a tip I learned a while back, that you shouldn't pull the thread back up through the machine because that causes lint to get caught inside the mechanism where you can't reach. So I always try to remember to trim the thread up at the top and then pull it out through the needle. It works out pretty well. I love the needle threader on this machine. It's so fancy. I barely have to do anything. I run it through and then hit a button and it threads the needle. It's amazing. All right, so I have to remember to make sure that the fabric that's got kind of a white on white print is the right side up. So you'll see me in a minute grab the other fabric and make sure that I'm doing it right. And I had to switch to a light colored thread so that it can stitch down the cream colored fabric. Oops. Forgot that it was going to move. And now I trim off the excess just on the side where it's going to stitch down the satin stitch. The rest of the fabric, the excess fabric, is in the seam allowance and it's going to get trimmed off afterwards anyway. So I don't have to worry about that right now. Here, I was a little bit worried that I didn't trim the fabric close enough, so I just fluffed it up a little so that the zigzag stitch would catch it. Now it is going to sew a quick satin stitch over that area. I'm getting prepared for what the next steps are. There I am double checking to make sure that I've got the fabric with the right side up. My cream colored fabric was way lighter than the dark green and even the dark red of the other stocking that I made. And so I decided that I was going to add an extra piece of batting underneath the cuff. So you'll see me do that after I do the stitch and flip step. So it's stitching the placement line for the fabric. And once it's done, I'm going to position the cream colored fabric on the line with just a slight seam allowance over it. And now it is going to sew down the seam for the stitch and flip cuff. So this is the part where I'm going to grab an extra piece of batting once I finger press the fabric so that I know that it's covered the correct area. Here I am. I went and trimmed it because it was a little bit big. And now I'm just going to line that up and then fold the fabric over the batting so that I'll have a really nice area to embroider and you won't get any of the show through the dark green fabric. It's going to tack down the cuff now so that it's all nice and taut. And I'm going to save you the next part where I added the extra embroidery step. It took me a little while to pick the name out and type out the name and then get it positioned in the hoop correctly. But here we go. I think I did pretty well. He's going to be very excited about it. Okay, so now is the fun part because now we're really coming together. We've only got a few steps left. I'm going to change my thread again, per usual. How are you doing? Are you sewing along as well? I wish I could see what you were working on. That would be so nice. I think what I love about working on an In-the-Hoop project is that it's quick, it's fast, it comes out really good. It gives me a sense of accomplishment when I'm getting frustrated. So there is the quilted part. I've already stitched down the placement lines and it has told me where to place that piece along the placement lines. I started to pick up the backing and then I remembered, oh no, I don't need that yet. I actually need to tack this down, so that can wait. But I do need to tape down this section. This piece is a little bit thick and oh boy, I have made this mistake before where I thought, oh, I can just hold it and then the foot gets caught. Oh, and then it can mess up the whole thing at this point, and you do not want to unpick this. Okay, so I've taped it down in place, and we're in good shape. So it is going to stitch around the edges of the stocking, and I'm going to get the lining piece ready. Now, what's interesting is you'll see that I had put this down green side to green side, and the red side is sticking up. And now I've got the other piece of red fabric, which is the other side of the lining. So I am going to lay this down on top of the hoop. This piece is plenty big for coverage, but I do need to just double check that it's covering on both sides. And once I get it where I want it and it's all nicely smoothed out, pop it back in the machine and it's going to do the final stitch. It's going to leave an opening at the bottom of the stocking for turning. And I am going to have to turn this twice. You'll see. It's really interesting how this works. So it is going to sew around the perimeter of the stocking, leaving that opening, and it's going to repeat it twice so that it is stitched together really securely. Quite honestly, it does a better job than I do sometimes. That's what I like about it too, is that it's so precise. If you are enjoying this video, I would love it if you gave me a thumbs up. It really helps my channel out. And if you've watched my other videos and you're enjoying the content, it would mean so much to me if you subscribed. It helps get my channel out to a wider audience, and I really appreciate it. All right, we're done. So now I need to bring this over to the cutting table, or, the other side of my table. Oops, stuck on the tape. Oh, it flipped over. You can see the quilting on the back. That's pretty cool. All right, the instructions now say that we need to trim this either using pinking shears or a pinking blade. And what I had was a pinking blade. Now, this is a brand new blade, and boy, I'm wondering if I still have the strength, the hand strength to actually use a pinking blade. You have to push pretty hard, and I'm starting to get the hang of it. There we go. Okay. All right, so now I think I'm going to freewheel it from here and just make sure I push down really well and go slowly and make sure I don't hit any of the stitched lines. There we go. It's working out pretty well now. I don't mind the rotary blade, but it sure isn't the same as the blue one that I use now. That one just cuts like butter. It's so good. All right, cool. There we go. There's all my garbage. Threw it in my little garbage can. Okay. Lovely. So now I'm going to stick my hand. Oh, I'm going to forget that I need to trim the top. So I'll trim off my corners, carefully avoiding the stitch line. And now I can go ahead and reach in and flip it around. This is pretty big, so it actually flips really nicely and easily because it's got the 2 layers. The top pops out really well, and I barely have to poke anything out. All right, there we go. Give it a little zhuzh. And now you can see that I can easily reach in and pop out all the pieces that I need. So there we go. Okay. Now what you didn't see was I went off camera and I pressed it, and then I used a little steam-a-seam and ironed the opening closed. Easy peasy. Didn't have to stitch it or anything. And now it's the final flip. Oh, it came out so cute. I'm really pleased. There we go. And look, here's the other one I made for my mother-in-law, Carol.
Okay, now the fun part. So I completed these 2 stockings for my in-laws, and I love the way they came out. I love the fabric that I used, and I love how their names came out embroidered on the cuff. And so what I am going to do is write it down on my So Supportive UFO Tracker that I created. I wrote down here that, let's see if you can see that, make sure, that I completed 2. Now I've got 4 stocking fronts that are done, so that's 6. So I need 3 more. I just ordered some fabric from Spoonflower for my son, and I might order some for my youngest as well, because I decided for the kids, for the remaining stockings, I want to make them a little bit special to give a nod to their personality. So that's where I've left off here. But then I also just started to add in other projects. So, for example, this one is for the Twilight Boulevard bench pillow that I was embroidering before Halloween. It has 8 blocks, and I've sewn 3 out of the 8 blocks so far. And I put in my plan section that I'm going to use my Luminaire sewing machine to quilt around the embroidery designs because I know that's one of the functions that I want to learn how to use, which is using the scanning feature on the sewing machine to select an area for the quilting. So that's that. And then I have my Bountiful Boxes quilt. Now I need to double check the size. I believe it's queen size, but I don't know the measurements off the top of my head. So I'll refer to the pattern for that one. I know that the 38 blocks are completed. So I checked off the test block, the cut fabric, the block sewn. Sewing the rows together is the next step. So that's where I will pick up when I pick up that project to complete it. And so far, this is working really well. My plan is to get a 3-hole punch and do a 3 holes on the side here, and then put all of these into a binder. And then I think I might have a finish binder as well, so that once the project is completed, I can move it into another binder so that it's not taking up space, and also helps me to keep track of the projects that I'm working on. Now, as a special gift, I have decided that I would like to offer everyone the opportunity to use this UFO tracker. It is currently on my Patreon for paid Patreons. And I have decided that until the end of the year, my holiday gift, I'm going to offer it up for anyone who signs up, even for a free account. So the link will be down below, and you can click on that link, sign up for a free account, and then I post short blogs, little notifications, and fun updates over there that you will be notified about for following me. And if you like to join the Patreon, then you get some special perks as well, like interacting with me and everyone else who is a member. And you get there places where you can share photos of your projects, ask for help, talk about your struggles, that kind of stuff. So we're building a really beautiful community there, and I hope you'll join us. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Monday. Happy holidays, everyone.